nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy. Can't you see I'm white and nerdy? Look at me, I'm white and nerdy.
So today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite movies and review one of my favorite flicks, and that flick would be The Little Shop of Horrors. Now, I'm not going to review the digibook version and tell you what's in it. What I would like to review is tell you a little bit about the movie and my opinions on the differences between the theatrical version and the original version. So Little Shop of Horrors is believed to have its beginnings in the early part of the 20th century. A British author by the name of John Collier wrote a short story in 1932 called Green Thoughts, and that short story is believed to have been the basis for the 1960 Roger Corman film The Little Shop of Horrors. So the 1960 Roger Corman film Little Shop of Horrors was a dark comedy set in a florist's shop and included a man eating plant. This was a black and white movie, and it was not a musical, but it did feature Jack Nicholson in a bit role. He played the role of the masochistic patient who went to see the dentist, a role later reprised by another wonderful actor named Bill Murray. The Corman film was later adapted into an off-Broadway musical hit called Little Shop of Horrors, and it was this Broadway adaptation that Frank Oz used to base his 1986 theatrical release of Little Shop of Horrors on. So the story of Little Shop of Horrors is basically the same across all three formats. It takes place in a Skid Row flower shop run by a man named Mr. Mushnick, who in the 1986 film is played by Vincent Gardenia. Rick Moranis plays the role of Seymour Krelborn, an employee of Mr. Mushnick's who also lives in the basement of Mushnick's flower shop. It is also revealed during the film that Mr. Mushnick has adopted Seymour at a very young age from a Skid Row orphanage, making Mr. Mushnick a father-type figure to Seymour. Helen Green reprises her Broadway role as Audrey, the ditzy, insecure love interest of Seymour, who also works at Mushnick's flower shop. The movie also features many great actors in cameo roles. Steve Martin plays Orrin Scrivello, the sadistic, abusive dentist and boyfriend of Audrey. Bill Murray plays a bit role as a masochistic patient of the dentist. John Candy has a bit part as a DJ who winds up interviewing Seymour on his weird show. And depending on which cut you watch, Jim Belushi also has a bit role at the end as well. The movie also features two musical artists. Christopher Guest, who is known from the band Spinal Tap, has a non-musical role as a customer of Mushnick's shop, and the voice of Audrey II, the plant, is played by Levi Stubbs, he of the Four Tops fame. So at the beginning of the film, Mr. Mushnick decides to close down the flower shop for good because they have no customers and they have no funds. In an attempt to keep the shop open, Seymour introduces Mr. Mushnick to Audrey II, a rare and exotic plant that he had been tinkering with for the last few weeks. Mr. Mushnick doesn't believe it will do any good, but as soon as Audrey II is placed in the window of the flower shop, customers begin streaming in and their luck begins to change. And for the first time in its existence, the flower shop begins to make money. It is discovered by Seymour one night, however, that the plant can only survive on a diet of human blood. So as the plant is small, Seymour begins to feed the plant with drippings of his own blood. The plant, however, soon begins to grow, and it becomes very obvious that Seymour is not going to be able to keep feeding the plant with the meager supply of blood that he has. And one night, or once the plant has grown to an enormous size, it begins to demand human bodies. First person to die and be fed to the plant is Orvin Scrivello, DDS, of course played by Steve Martin. The second person to die and fed to the plant is Mr. Mushnick himself. Mr. Mushnick confronts Seymour, knowing that he, in fact, is the one who killed Audrey's boyfriend. What Mr. Mushnick doesn't know and finds out too late is that the remains of her boyfriend was fed to the plant, as is Mr. Mushnick. And here is where the two films diverge. In the theatrical cut of the film, the plant tricks Audrey into coming to the flower shop and attempts to eat her. Seymour comes back and saves Audrey from the plant, and then goes back into the flower shop, and after a protracted battle and musical number, ultimately winds up destroying Audrey too, as well as the flower shop. And at the end, both Seymour and Audrey live happily ever after in a nice tract house, having finally vanquished the evil of the plant. In the director's cut, or the original version, the story more closely follows the original movie and the original Broadway play. The plant does indeed attempt to eat Audrey, and Seymour comes back to save her. However, she is mortally wounded, and after a long and heartfelt speech, asks that Seymour feed her lifeless body to the plant, and in that way, the two of them can be together forever. After Audrey dies, Seymour does in fact feed her body to the plant, and then goes up and climbs to the top of the flower shop in order to commit suicide, because he's heartbroken at all the monstrosities and murders that he's committed. At the end, a PR director from a firm comes and asks Seymour to give him cuttings from the plant because he wants to distribute them to flower shops all across America. And Seymour realizes that that has been the plant's ultimate goal all along, was world conquest. So he goes back into the flower shop to confront Audrey too, and after the protracted battle and requisite musical number, Seymour is killed and is consumed by Audrey too. And at the end of the movie, as the little plantings are distributed across America, we see thousands upon thousands of Audrey 2s barreling across the cities of America as the plant continues its conquest of the human race. Test audiences didn't like that ending. In fact, they hated that ending. And they wanted an ending that was more upbeat and happy, an ending where the hero and the heroine survive and save the day. And so Frank Oz, under pressure from Warner Brothers, had to make the difficult decision of cutting his ending and reshooting a new ending where everybody lives happily ever after in order to appease the masses of the public. So what do I think of this movie? I love this movie. This has been a favorite movie of mine for many years. I have watched this movie over and over and over again, and I enjoy every minute of it. But the ending never sat well with me, and I never knew why, until now. I never knew there was an alternate ending. I had never seen the original Broadway play, nor had I ever seen the original Roger Corman film. So I never knew that this was never the ending that Frank Oz intended. And to me, the ending of the movie as it was before the director's cut never sat well with me. It was too trite, it was too campy, it was too happy, it didn't fit well with the rest of the theme of the movie, and now I know why. The director's cut of the movie with the original ending is a much more satisfying ending to me. It is a much more apropos ending to me, and it fits the theme and the message of the movie a lot better than the original theatrical ending. This is a comedy, but this is a movie with a message. This is a movie that explores the darkness of the human soul. It explores the vices and the addictions of the human spirit, and it shines a giant spotlight on the consumeristic enterprise of American society. And I think that's why the test audience didn't like the original ending. Because this movie shows them the darkest corners of the human psyche, and it made them uncomfortable. They didn't want to admit that these tendencies existed within themselves, so they decided that they wanted a movie with a happier ending. A movie where evil doesn't win, and where the hero and the heroine save the day. But the fact of the matter is that sometimes evil does win. Sometimes really bad things happen to really good people, and we can't explain why. We can't compartmentalize the things that happen in our lives. We would like to explain everything and wrap it up in a nice little bow, but sometimes we can't. And the sad fact of the matter is that sometimes really good people get involved with some really bad things, and they don't know how they got involved in it, but they can't get out of it. And now they are a slave to it. And these are the themes and the types of issues and ideas that this movie brings to light. And that's why the original ending works, because it ties in with the rest of the message of the movie. In this particular instance, evil does win, and that's just the way it goes. And having an ending where the good guys win and evil is vanquished completely negates everything that you were trying to say in the movie up to that point. And that is why I enjoy the director's cut, the original cut of the movie, a lot more than I enjoy the original theatrical release. So is this a message movie? It is, absolutely. But it's done and handled beautifully. The acting is superb. The dialogue is great. There's some campy moments. There's some comedy elements. There are great musical numbers. But at the end of the day, there is a message to the movie, a message about the human condition. And it's done in such a way that we don't feel like we've been hit over the head with a hammer when we walk out of the movie. We can accept the movie as it is, and we can accept the message because it's not given to us on the end of a sledgehammer. It's sort of gently handed to us on a little platter and little bits and pieces that we can digest easily. So is this a movie that you should watch? Absolutely. Is this a movie that you should own and own it on Blu-ray? Absolutely. Go out and buy the digibook copy of Little Shop of Horrors on Blu-ray and watch it. Watch the director's cut and watch how it was originally intended to be. If you've been a fan of the movie and the ending never sat quite well with you, like it didn't sit well with me, the director's cut of the movie will be a much more satisfying ending for you. And I think it just feels better overall as a movie. If you're a Rick Moranis fan, if you're a Steve Martin fan, if you're a John Candy fan, if you're a fan of musicals, if you're a fan of campy sci-fi, then this is a movie that you should at least go out and watch. You will not be disappointed. This movie is a great movie, even almost 20 years later. In 2016 will be the 20th anniversary of this movie, and even this many years later, this movie still delivers. It looks beautiful on Blu-ray. The transfer is gorgeous. The sound is superb. It's a musical, so it has to sound well, and it sounds excellent. Overall, if you are a fan of these actors, or you're a fan of musicals, if you're a fan of this genre, it would behoove you to go out and pick this movie up and add it to your collection and put it in your library. You will not be disappointed. Thank you for watching my review of Little Shop of Horrors. If you've liked what you've seen and you want to see more, click the subscribe button. Go back and watch some of the older videos that I've done. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, get the word out there, and I will see you guys later.